Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 59 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, January 8th, and we got a week's worth of basketball to talk about, and a pretty big week of basketball coming up. So that's what we're going to concentrate on. If you can believe it, first week of January, that's we're going to talk about basketball.
And we lost our guest, Whitey.
Yeah, Morgan Wilson was.
We had it. Well, not that guest, our real guest.
Oh,
We had our real guest, and he had to pull out today. He ended up. I think his wife had other plans, and she was gone, and he was tending the young children. So we are going to get him on soon because this is a great basketball guest we're going to have.
Yeah, we're going to make it happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, Morgan was sitting in with you before we started recording, and I tried to talk her into standing there and blocking out the non-Uve half of your poster in the background there, and she didn't want to stick around. So
She was sitting in front of Dockage's half of my new canvas back there, which was good. But yeah, she's got a lot of her mom in her. She likes to talk a lot, so she would have taken a lot of airtime.
She did have a good suggestion. I mean, she said that she should have a show and get my daughter on here, and they can just talk about us and
talk about hospitality rooms.
That's actually not a bad idea. We may have to have a segment sometime where we just let them take 10 minutes and badmouth us, or maybe say nice things. I don't know.
Next time I see Mac, I will ask her about. I'm going to give her a bill. Say she owes us like $3.
I told her about the cookie thing, the suggestion that she was pretty open to that. So I think you might have yourself a deal. So
all right. We'll see what we pull off.
We'll look into it. So anyway, got back into the swing of things this week. Some pretty good wins for some of our teams. The T-Town in particular had a pretty good win on the girls basketball side. A couple of pretty good wins. I don't know where we want to start. It's not like we actually
start there. You've opened Pandora's box.
Yeah, it's not like we had any sort of a conversation about what we were going to actually do.
We talk about everything but everything but what we're going to talk about.
Telling people how the sausage is made here. T-Town girls, they went to they had Mattoon on Thursday night, and then they played in a shootout down in Breeze on Saturday, and they got a couple of wins. They beat Mattoon in overtime, 60-57, and then they beat Rochester 47-43 down at Breeze, and that puts the Lady Shoes at 16-2. And now that T-Town Mattoon matchup, it's not quite. I was thinking it wouldn't quite be what it was last year. Mattoon obviously had the Ramage girl who was an outstanding player. She graduated, and Mattoon's they beat Charleston later on in the week to get to 500. But my understanding is they're playing pretty good basketball right now, starting to figure things out. And then obviously,
was that at Mattoon?
Yes, that was. You're making me question myself now, but one quick scroll they were at Mattoon, so
never an easy place to play.
The bottom line is, though, they've won. I'm counting here. They've won 7 games in a row. They had won several in a row before they ran into Paris. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They'd won 6 in a row before they got beat by Paris right before Christmas. And so, they've obviously been winning and playing really good basketball. And, it seems like Lori's got the kids in a pretty good place right now.
This is when their schedule kind of beefs up. You probably got, I think Central and Modern Day are both still on there. They got the Highland tournament.
Yes,
which is a fun girls tournament to go to. Man, that's a pack your lunch tournament.
It really is. Yeah, they got this coming week. They've got Bethalto coming in on Monday, and then they go to Flora on Thursday. Which Flora has a losing record, but we'll get to this in a little bit. They gave St. Anthony a real good game on Saturday, and then the Highland tournament begins on Saturday. Saturday. They play Waterloo in the first game, and then it'll be either Alton or Troy Triad, and then after that, who knows? It just depends on how it
That's
goes.
a pretty thick tournament.
It always is. It always is. T-Town's been playing in it as long as I can remember, and there's always some really top-notch competition in there. You get to Saturday, and there's usually a lot of a lot of really good games. It's about as good as a girls' tournament gets around here, I think. And
And I
so,
saw Kaylee Nieberg. He was, I guess, down there in that shootout. They give out like an MVP
yes,
award every game,
yep,
and
she
she got the
did.
MVP that game.
She scored 20 some points. I forget off the top of my head, but I mean, that's just what she does, right? She's averaging 18 a game, and she's she has obviously emerged as the go-to scorer on that team. Emily Conkle is up there in double figures too, but
Yeah, those two are the main ones, and then they've had a lot of different girls who will have a good game or two, and then they don't score, and somebody else does. So it's, I think Lori's trying to find that consistent help. Is her biggest thing she's searching for.
she's gotten so like Molly Ruhal scored 15 points against Mattoon. Okay. She's got a 13-point game earlier in the season, but there's
Those are it.
a lot
Yeah,
of zeros
she's
in
a
there.
shooter. She's a shooter, and I'm assuming that's, they're again. You and I had this conversation before we started. We're talking about something else. It's all about matchups, and sometimes kids don't fit on the floor in
Yeah.
certain situations. And that's a case where a kid's pretty good against the zone, and when you get that opportunity, and she's a lefty and can shoot it, and it's just those things happen. I
Yeah.
remember Ronnie Nieberg one time. A kid didn't hardly play at all in a regional semifinal, and he just said just wasn't a good matchup.
Yeah.
And he's exactly right. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, coaches have to explain that more to parents than they should.
Yeah. I mean, I guess people probably don't generally understand the amount of preparation that goes into
Oh
every one of
my.
these games that you're
Yes.
watching, especially now because the film is so much more easy to like. It's
Right.
so
With
much easier to
Huddle
see
and
a team.
well, Huddle's their main. I
And,
mean, you
and so,
get film now on everybody. Back in the day, you'd drive on a Sunday night and trade tapes for your next week's games. And now um, almost everybody has Huddle. They put their tapes on there and you just swap them online.
yeah, and so you can kind of know ahead of time, like what you're going for, and have a game plan, and it's not a slight against one kid or another. It's a lot of times it's just this is the situation, or sometimes you see a game play out for a half and understand that you have got to
Well,
make some personnel changes.
people
And
think that, okay, well, the coach is there during practice and then they play games and he's there and but no, they spend a lot of time taking supper in the other room while they're watching tape or, watching tape all the time. And coaches, good coaches who run good programs spend a lot of time, Whitey, behind the scenes watching tape or going and watching a team. Even when I had tape, I still wanted to see a team play because you can't always tell. In my eyes, I couldn't tell how quick kids were on tape. I wanted to see it in person.
well, and sometimes it's hard to gauge their size too. I think
Yeah,
I remember getting a hold of some video of the Goreville girls team last year before Neoga played them in the super sectional, and I could tell they had pretty good size, but it was hard to judge. And when we got on the floor and saw those kids warming up, I was like, holy cow, we got a bunch of linebackers here. It's just it's a little bit different thing when you're right there
oh
with
yeah,
them.
heck yes
So
it was.
so absolutely. Yeah, so T-Town's girls, they're um again, it doesn't get any easier, for them. They got a lot of quality
And are
teams.
they what? Did I see they're ranked eighth in that?
Uh
And then again, trust me, you could ask Laura; she couldn't tell you
yeah, she doesn't care. She's
no,
probably the last person in the world who
exactly.
cares what
She's
they're
worried
ranked.
about her opponents this week.
Yeah, I can, I should actually pull up. I think the
No, we don't need to.
T-Town's boys, meanwhile, we'll just
Okay,
stay there.
all right.
Not. Um They beat Monticello Tuesday night. That was a road game too, right? Or did they have
That was the tornado
Oh,
warning game.
that's right. They had to
Had
take
to
shelter.
evacuate them into the hallways, into the bowels of Monticello High School.
I was just in Monticello High School not that long ago. There's it's a big place, plenty of
It
good
is.
boys.
That's a nice. We were up there for a girls sectional last year.
Yeah.
So that game got delayed a little bit, and T-Town won pretty handily there. And then they played,
47-29.
yeah. Then they played Warrensburg Latham Saturday afternoon.
Smoked them.
Yeah. And the thing
68-31.
is, you look at the scoring. I think James Nieberge and Garrett Gaddis were their top two scorers. So that tells me that was a tempo game, a little more of a tempo game, because those two are kind of up and down the floor a little more.
Uh-huh.
Caleb Seamer was still in double digits. Brendan Nieberge was still in double digits. And I hope Brendan gets this little shooting slump he got in during the Christmas tournament. I hope he gets out of that in spades, because he just looks like he's got a hitch in his giddy up.
Well, I mean, that's why, and we've already talked about this in the past, but it bears mentioning again. That's why a kid like Gaddis is so important, because you're going to get a little something out of him, right? Even when some teams, if you could take number 1 and 2 out, or either 1 or 2 out of it, you've already
They're in
got
trouble
beat, because they just don't know who to turn to, and that's not the case for T-Town. They've got
no, they've got depth.
they've got a handful of kids who can and will put the ball
You
in
got
the
kids
hole.
who can score. Heck, and you've had Joey Nieberge, who was player of the game in the shootout up in Peoria, or Eureka. So I mean, it's good to see other kids having nice games, and I'm sure they're all patiently waiting for Brendan to start, burying 3 in a row, and when he gets back to shooting it well again, they're going to be tough.
14-2, the boys team is. So the girls are 16-2, the boys are 14-2.
Boys go to St. Joe Ogden Tuesday night.
Yeah, that's a big one, because St. Joe Ogden's got a very highly touted player.
Mr. Pence is going to Illinois State. Last year they came down here and played, and 1 or 2 of their guards were sick. And T-Town kind of handled them, and then St. Joe kind of made a run late. T-Town, I think, won by 8 or 10, if I remember right. But, now St. Joe wants to even the score. I think St. Joe got their first loss. Maybe Williamsville beat them this week right after the New Year's.
The information is always at the tip of our fingers here. They looks like they got a couple losses.
Maybe they lost at Christmas.
Williamsville did beat them, but they had already lost one other game prior to that, it would appear.
Okay.
Not sure who. It must have been pretty early in the season.
Well, I thought they were undefeated for a while.
I'm looking.
I'm guessing it happened at Christmas at the State Farm.
Yeah, they got Williamsville in there, and then Linton Stockton, some team out of Indiana that, yes, this would appear to be. No, I don't think it was a Christmas tournament game. I think it was.
That was after the first of the year, also, wasn't it?
December 22nd was that Linton Stockton game,
okay.
And Williamsville was January 3rd. So, maybe Williamsville was the first Illinois team that beat them.
Yeah, there we go. And then who they play on the weekend? Whose Shoes got on the weekend?
The Shoes have the boys this weekend play Madison. They go to Madison.
Okay. Madison's a pretty good team this year.
Yeah.
And they go to Madison. That's interesting trip.
And then next week they got Danville coming in. They go to Fairbury Prairie Central.
Prairie Central's ranked number 1 in the state, but I think they got beat, so they may not still be number 1.
And then the following week they go to Mater Dei, and they've got Mount Zion coming in, and they go to Pinckneyville. It's just and then the next week they got Newton and St. Anthony coming in. It's just boy, there's no breaks in there.
They're really getting. One of the years I was AD, when we were still, I think the first year we got into Salem, when we had East St. Louis, had to play East St. Louis down there at Salem. That was a brutal year on the schedule as well. So So yeah, but again, that's how you get better. You face
Sure.
that competition. Again, none of these teams are going to scare them because none of these teams are Lincoln Way East.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. You have to have the group of kids understand, what the point of playing these games is, and understand,
Yeah,
if you don't play well in a game, or if you lose one, like, you know, big deal. Like,
yeah,
you want to win every game. Like,
right.
you don't want to start saying it's okay to lose games, but by the same token, you play a stretch like this, you
Yeah.
know, the chances of coming out of it undefeated are, they're that's a tough task.
It's like
Nothing
losing
bigger.
two in a row at Nashville Invitational Tournament to Nashville and Bree Central on consecutive nights. It can happen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to be able to keep it in perspective. So,
Exactly.
um, let's do let's shift over to the Apollo boys next.
All right.
Because then that'll get me into the Apollo girls. Because
Yeah.
the Apollo is a really good girls conference. Apollo and NTC both. We need to talk about as a conference how good they both are. I want to make sure we touch on that since we got time tonight. But on the boys' side of things, Effingham had a couple of games this week, and they dropped a couple. They went to Olney on Tuesday and lost by 14, which
You did that game. You said it, and it wasn't a 14-point game.
no, they were even ahead at points in the third quarter, and then it just kind of got away from them. They got 36 points out of a kid.
Yeah,
Olney
I saw.
did.
I listened to that. I heard the end of your game there.
He couldn't miss anything.
Does the Tolman kid play? He's a freshman, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's their second leading scorer. Yeah, it's Keen Tillman's little brother.
I never heard his name mentioned the whole game when you were broadcasting.
Well, he's got a ways to go. I mean, he gets some points. He's a big kid, and he's something you have to think about, which opens things up for another teammate to score 36 points, which Obi
Yeah.
pointed out to us in the post game interview. Like, yeah, the guy scored 36 points, but you don't do that without, one or
Right.
two other guys that have to command some attention. The thing is that I wasn't sure how important the Tolman kid was to their team, because I was there a couple weeks ago when St. Anthony played, and Tolman hardly played. He's 6'8". He's a freshman. He's 6'8". He didn't play very much in that game. He got a little bit of early fouls, and then I think that Rob just kind of didn't use him in the second half because he wasn't matching up well with St. Anthony,
Yeah, there's really, oh yeah,
another
no
one of
one
those
can
things.
guard him. He can't guard anyone. I mean,
Well,
it's a
he
catch 22 there.
he does defensively have work to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's where, and he's a freshman, okay? Like, he'll
I mean, I'm sure if he's guarding another 6'8" freshman, he's pretty good defense.
yeah, it's just it's staying with a smaller, quicker guy, and I think that's what he. There were a few lapses for him in that Effingham game, and again against St. Anthony, I think that Flanagan just kind of saw that it wasn't a good spot for him, so he only played like 11 minutes in that game. But again, he's their second leading scorer, so he's certainly doing things. But yeah, Effingham was in that game, uh, and just it got away from them at the end of the third quarter. There was a bit of a swing happening already, and then uh, they had a technical foul right at the end of the third quarter, and so only got free throws and the ball to start the fourth quarter, and got ahead by 6 points, I think, and then it was just Effingham could never catch up, could never get back into it, and then once it turned into a free throw shooting contest, only just kept widening the gap, and that's kind of how it got to be 14 points, but it was more of a tight game for most of it. And then you were in Effingham Friday night when Mount Zion came in, and Mount Zion beat Effingham 59-48. They're undefeated in the conference and 17-2 overall, so they're obviously a very good team. But Effingham had them down in the first quarter. Mount Zion didn't get in the lead till the second or till halftime, right?
I'm the start of the game. I'd heard, oh, how good Mount Zion is, how good Mount Zion is. the first 4 minutes of that game, defense was optional for Mount Zion. They were guarding Logan Heil, but they were. I mean, Andrew Donaldson and Garrett Wolf hit 4 threes early, pretty much uncontested. They were just like, "Oh, you want to shoot that? Go ahead." And then they were going down, and they couldn't make a three. They started the first quarter like 1 of 5 or 6, and it was kind of like watching a game of horse, Whitey. It really was.
Yeah.
Mount Zion came out in the second quarter defensively and completely different. And to give you an idea, Donaldson didn't get a look at a three again until probably late third, maybe one of the late possession in the third quarter is before he got another look. Because anytime he catch the ball now, they were right there. And they got some kids who are quick and can guard when they want to. And I kind of joked with Greg because he was kind of talking about they kind of had their hands on FEM a little bit, kind of trying to poke it away. And it looked like junior high kids going through a haunted house. They all had a hold of somebody so they didn't get separated. And it was a scrappy physical game, but the Hearts just kind of hung around. And the reason they hung around, Mount Zion was 1 of 16 on threes.
Yeah.
Mount Zion's got 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". The 6'7" freshman Anderson kid, nice player. He kind of sparked him in that second quarter. He came in hot and got a bucket, and I think Logan Heil got in foul trouble. And then, Spencer Fox is trying to guard him, but he's giving up 4 inches at least, 5 inches.
Yeah.
And the kid kind of did some nice things, and then he came out in the third quarter and did some nice things. This Cuddy, 6'8" kid, nice shooter. He hit their only 3. He can shoot it. And then they got 6'9" kid, Owen Owens, came in. The Anderson's the only kid that doesn't look thin. I mean, he's just, as a normal-looking kid, he's just stretched out to 6'7". Cuddy is kind of thin. Owen Owens pretty thin, but they're still 6'7", 6'8", 6'9".
And most of those, Mount Zion's still real young, right? Like a lot of their
they start 3 sophomores. They're young.
So
and they're pretty athletic. Had a kid miss a dunk late. Effingham was it got to a point in the game where they had it up to 15, about 3-4 minutes to go, 4 1/4 maybe, and kid went down and missed a dunk, and then Effingham went down, and Donaldson got wide open again. Now we've got the lead. He got a nice open look, and he buried it, and then he buried another one, and somebody else hit a shot, and Effingham all of a sudden had it back down to 7. And it was just, one of those games. Mount Zion's pretty athletic. They're pretty good. They just defensively, when they wanted to play, they were pretty good, but they didn't play much defense for about 6 minutes of the first quarter and probably a couple minutes of the fourth quarter. They just were disinterested.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that'll bite you because you played good 3A school in the postseason. And
I was looking, Effingham's 6-12 now, but they're 3-3 in the Apollo, and really it's kind of a slog there in the middle. Mattoon and Taylorville at the bottom, but Effingham, Mahomet, and Charleston all 3-3, and they're all kind of, capable of beating each other or losing to each other. But
they got Taylorville this weekend. That's one of their wins in the conference.
Yes.
They played okay in that game. It was better. They played better than they had played at Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. But I would expect them here at home to beat Taylorville because I think the Hearts are playing better now. I thought they had a good Christmas, and Mount Zion was just a tough barometer. I mean, they fought, they guarded. It's just, Mount Zion pretty good. They just kind of turn it on and off.
Yeah, that's Friday night that Taylorville comes in. Newton comes in on Tuesday.
Okay, that'll be a good ball game.
Yeah, Newton, they kind of, I don't know that they probably were thrilled with how they played at the Christmas tournament. They were at the Teton. Effingham. They did win a couple. They turned it around. They played. I'm scrolling down here. They've played since then. Yesterday they went up to that St. Joseph Ogden shootout and played Monticello. And apparently, I was listening to it on the radio a little bit. Apparently, they were running a shot clock in this game, and
Oh, really?
got beat by. They got beat 80-58.
Really?
Yeah, so they've lost three out
I'll
of
have to
five.
ask Troy. I'll have to text Troy and ask him how the shot clock experience was.
Yeah,
Newton's got a kid, little guard, just quick now. I'm here to tell you, he can go from here to there in a blink of an eye.
well, that was the thing coming into the Christmas tournament. I just felt like Newton might make some noise in there too, just because they're another one of those teams. They got three guys who just seem to score all the time, and
Three
so
juniors, yeah, three juniors.
that's difficult to deal with. But that Centennial kind of got them off their feet a little bit, and I think the Matt Toon loss was the one that they probably just they felt like they
Right.
had to
And
feel like
Centennial, you know, you never know how they're going to play when they come down here. They're the hardest team we have seeding when they come down because we don't know what to expect.
yeah, you never know
They'll
what you
beat somebody and you're like, wow. And then they'll turn around and get beat by somebody. How did they lose?
yeah.
And then I don't know.
They keep it interesting. So Mount Zion, yeah, they're undefeated in the conference. Lincoln's 5-1. Their only conference loss was to Mount Zion, but it kind of
Was that, and I don't know that everyone says Lincoln's not your dad's Lincoln anymore. If Mount Zion wants to, I can see him running the table. I really can. They got some talent, Whitey. They really do. They got some athletic kids. It's just, they're kind of like watching a cat play with a mouse.
that's kind of there's a lot of Chiefs games that are like that this year.
Yeah,
They're
it's just,
playing with their food. That's exactly what I've seen a
yeah.
lot of people
I
describe.
saw the Chiefs. Was that yesterday? They ran the ring around the rosy play.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yes, it was
I like that.
uh gets you a little attention. I don't know how tactically effective it actually is, but
Like teams used to do the kickoff return. Everybody run together and huddle and then scatter and take off like cockroaches.
I guess it doesn't allow the other team to see what personnel you have and where they're going to go. I mean, I suppose there's
Scored a
some
touchdown. Of course, there was a fake holding penalty called. So
yeah, I don't know. But yeah, Effingham, we talked about what they've got. Other than that, it's a really slow week in the Apollo, so there's not much going on. A lot of those teams aren't playing much this week unless I just didn't get their games added, but I went through all of them. So um Effingham's girls, they only had one game this week, and they got beat yesterday by Mount Zion, lost by 13. I don't know anything other than that. It was 54
and
to
then they
4.
got what, Paris Thursday?
Yeah, this week they got Taylorville. They go to Taylorville on Tuesday, which Taylorville's girls are good. They're
Okay.
they're strong, 15-4. Um,
Tough
and
trip.
then they've got Paris coming in, and Paris's girls are a load.
Paris was really good. And that's the honoring Jeff Schaefer that night.
Yes, they're going to recognize Jeff Schaefer officially, do a little ceremony for him for breaking Maxidon's winning his coach mark at Effingham. So just to give you a little perspective about Paris, Mount Zion beat Effingham by 13 yesterday. Okay. Paris and Mount Zion played on Tuesday night, and Paris beat Mount Zion by 25. So, I mean, that
Any
game,
given day.
that's not a scientific game, but Paris, if you look, I mean, they're doing what they did last year, which is they're just smoking people. So they're very good. That's going to be a tough matchup. It's a tough week for Effingham. It's a couple of really challenging games. Losing to Mount Zion dropped Effingham to 3-3 in Apollo play. So you got Lincoln undefeated at 6-0 in the conference, 20-0 on the year. Then Taylorville and Mount Zion both 4-2, and Effingham's there at 3-3. So just to give you an idea of where they fit into the conference picture, it's a strong conference. Non-conference games for the Apollo, 67-24 the league is.
Good.
And then you factor in that 10 of those losses in non-conference play belong to Charleston. Charleston's girls are they're in a tough spot. They're in a bad place. But
Have they won?
What's that?
Charleston's girls won.
Yes, they did. They beat Danville in the first week of the season. And then that same team beat them by 27 points at the Christmas tournament.
May not have had all the personnel.
May not have. Actually, I know for a fact that that's true. Charleston was missing somebody at their Christmas.
Okay.
So that does. I mean, especially if you've got a roster where there's just not a lot there, you lose one of your better players, and it's gonna go pear shaped on you. But the Apollo is a very, very good girls basketball conference. Every other team, with the exception of Charleston, has won many more games than they've lost in non-conference play. And we talked about Mattoon a little bit in the context of their game with T-Town, but even they, they're 1-4 in league play, 9-9 overall, but they've been playing much better basketball as of late. And I think that just sort of lets you know that that's a good win for the Lady Shoes as much as anything. NTC boys.
Big game this week.
Yeah, there's a big game coming up, and that's between Altamont and North Clay, and both of those teams had a good week also. Altamont beat Shelbyville by 24 points, which, from my understanding, Shelbyville's solid, right?
Yeah, they've been up and down. I mean, I'd heard they were, you got to see Shelbyville, and I think Windsor's two straws went up and spanked them.
Windsor's pretty good too, though.
I understand that. But what I'm saying is, when you're telling me how good you are and then you get spanked. So Johnny, Altamont's now won 8 in a row.
Yes.
On a nice 8-game winning streak. North Clay's
won a bunch in a row too.
Yeah, 5 or 6.
So is South Central, by the way.
Yeah.
I can give you this math. North Clay has won 7 in a row. Yeah, they've won 7 in a row. Going back to they played Newton for a second time and got beat on December 9th. And they have not lost since then. Beating Sisney twice in there, which is a pretty good accomplishment.
Those are nice ones.
Yeah. So North Clay this week I'd never finished telling you what Altamont did. Altamont beat Shelbyville, and then they beat Diederich on Friday night by 15 points. And Diederich's playing. As far as I know, the kid is still not playing. He's their big guy in the middle, and that hurts them a lot.
Which kid? Wessenor?
No, the kid, Colton Kid. Kid is his last name.
Oh, for Diederich?
Yeah, he's big boy. He is. I'm looking at the box scores for Diederich, and he is not. He hasn't seen action since the 16th against St.
Well, I know the Britton kid's been out possibly for the whole season, and
Britton,
he was probably
their best.
He was probably their best player coming back.
So. Yeah, that really hurt them to not be able to have him for this year. But and then Altamont beat Woodlawn yesterday by 40 points. I don't think Woodlawn had a real stretch there where their boys basketball was super strong, but obviously
they wanted on our schedule at T-Town. They said we got 1.5 years of good ball still, and since then, they got nothing. Now North Clay played CHBC on Friday.
Yeah, they won that.
And I watched Friday night late when I got home. I saw had a parent live streaming it on Facebook. So I was obviously after the fact. Oh my, mighty. Oh, my brain is hurting all Friday night. I laid trying to sleep. Logan Fleener reminds me of someone, and I can't place it because he's got these white high tops on, okay? And he's on top of the 1-3-1 they're playing. And I quit watching early second quarter. And he had already had 5 dunks. And the fourth one got waved off on a travel that was kind of a coin toss. Pass came up and he kind of caught it, gathered it, and went with it. And official called traveling. Could have gone either way, but and other times he's in transition, forcing a turnover, and he's kind of got the old, almost a little baby George Gervin finger roll going, Whitey. He gets up and elevates and then just lays it up on the rim. And I can't think of who he's reminding me of.
Well, he's also an Illinois State scholar. I saw that Josh shared
Yeah,
that on Facebook this
he
week.
gets that from his mother.
Well, I was going to say, so
his mother's 1,000-point scorer.
So besides his last name, what's he getting from Justin? I want
exactly.
You
Justin said your last name is Fleener. Okay, Susan, you give him the rest of his attributes. But it's fun to watch him, and I'm watching this tape on Facebook, and I know Calvin Herrick Beecher said he's struggling this year, and they were struggling against the 1-3-1, and it's just he takes off and then he throws it down. It's not like someone who barely gets it over the rim or has to stop and go off 2 feet. I mean, he's dunking.
And North Clay's got some other jump. I mean, they've got some other leap on that team. So.
Griffey kid missed one and got teed up because he hung on the rim. I think it was a Griffey kid. Looked like the Griffey kid.
I'm not sure he played. I don't know. I'm not sure he plays basketball.
No, the Bose kid. I'm sorry, the Bose kid.
Boost. Okay, that makes more sense.
Him too. But they got some kids who can, and then there's a Smith kid also.
Yes,
who can flat get up, and I don't remember which one it was, but they got teed up, and Coach Zink kind of took him out of the game and just said, "Hey, you hung on the rim. I mean, it was missed, and I don't mind kids trying to dunk because then they're trying to do things full bore. He hung, and he really didn't have to hang. Now, I did not realize something. I came across an article. I didn't realize Coach Zink was such a good baseball.
Yeah.
He was an EIO stud back in the day.
Yeah. Yep. That's what he was. I can't remember if he mentioned playing there when we had him on.
I don't think he did. I don't think we gave him a chance. We were trying to correct Roy Taylor saying ding dong. We spent more time about that.
Is that what it was? Yeah, he definitely was there. I know it's come up in conversation with him.
Yeah, I saw it hit like 345 with like 6 home runs, and that's good numbers.
And North Clay, they had a shootout Saturday and played Edwards County, beat them by 20 points. Yeah. Not a lot of real tight games in that shootout, as it turns out.
So they got a big one coming up Friday night, and I hope I get to do that game with Matt Robinson. We'll have to see.
I think that's the plan.
Well, I think it's safe that Matt's doing that game.
Yeah.
And we're trying to cut down on your driving from Neoga all the way to Altamont.
Yeah, like I would, not that I wouldn't like to see it, of course. It's a very big game in the context of the NTC standings because North Clay and Altamont are your two teams that haven't lost a game in the conference. It's pretty early in the boys' conference yet. Nobody.
Who has Windsor's conference lost to?
Windsor Stew Straws. They just got beat this week by St. Elmo.
Really?
Yeah, St. Elmo beat them 59-52. Windsor beat Neoga 62-59 on Tuesday night, which was a tight game, and then St. Elmo got them by 7 on Friday night.
Okay.
So Windsor's 2-1. So North Clay's 3-0. Altamont's 2-0. St. Anthony 3-1. Windsor 2-1. Those are your undefeated and one-loss teams in the conference.
Rumor has it St. Anthony will be honoring their 1,500th win at the Windsor Stew Straws game.
Is that right?
That may be. I may have jumped the gun and releasing that information, but
that's
Little Bird told me.
Yeah, that's not next week though, right? They don't.
I think that's the Friday night of the Salem tournament, so 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah, because St. Anthony they just played once this week. They played twice. They got beat by Robinson on Tuesday. Got beat by Robinson by 10 points. I don't know much about that one. We weren't.
Robinson's so up and down. I mean, they've got some kids who can play. It's just
what they did. They limited Purdue Day only scored 8 points in that game, and I'm not harping on Brock. You know, I don't want anyone to take it this way, but he's an important player to their team, and that's 3 straight games that St. Anthony's lost, and that's 3 straight games that he's been held to single figures. I mean, he's
Well, again, people focus on him, and Colin
yeah,
Westendorf had some nice games at the Christmas tournament.
he did made all tournament team. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, and Adam Rudabaugh scored 10 points against Robinson, so
yeah,
that's a nice thing to see. I mean, they weren't sure that Rudabaugh would even be able to play this year. I mean,
right,
they
right.
were
That's
certainly
huge, and it's huge that you get him back when you did, because now he can get his sea legs. Everybody can get used to playing with him, and
ultimately losing 3 straight games to T-Town, Pleasant Plains, and Robinson doesn't have to cost you anything because
no,
it doesn't matter in your conference, and those are good teams to play. You know, again, one regional start, you're better for having played all 3 of them.
all
So
2A schools who have a legitimate shot of being a top 4 seed in their sectional complex.
absolutely, if you're gonna lose games to tough teams, this is
Yeah,
late
that's how you
December,
do
early
it. Yeah.
January is time to do it. They played Paris. St. Anthony played Paris on well, they played them yesterday and beat them by 30 points, 32 to be exact. So they did get a win there. And they're 11-7 overall, but again, 3-1 in conference play. So they're still, they're still in that, but they need some help from North Clay because the one loss was to North Clay. So
Yeah, well, they're 11-7, 2 losses to T-Town, lost to Pleasant Plains, lost to Robinson. There's 4 of your 7 losses right there. Um, and lost to Highland.
just
Good
one loss,
Highland.
just
Huh?
one loss to T-Town. They played
Oh,
T-Town.
that's right. This one they didn't play Thanksgiving. I'm sorry.
Nope. Yeah, they
Right.
But
That's right.
Breeze Central,
Yeah.
Highland, North Clay, Newton, T-Town, Pleasant Plains, Robinson, all very good teams.
There's not a loss on there going, gosh. No,
No,
that's
no,
good
uh,
teams.
you'd like to at a certain point, beat one of those teams,
Sure.
just because, I don't think I have to say why, right? Like it's pretty obvious you'd like to, but none of them are losses that you got to feel bad about either.
No.
They got Neoga coming in on Tuesday night. Neoga struggles to score. Neoga just they've given some really good teams some good games, but they're always really low scoring. And at the end of the day, Neoga just has trouble finding a third person that's capable of putting the ball in the hole, and so that really makes them uh, gives teams something to think about defensively, like a way to beat them defensively. And then St. Anthony goes to Mater Day on Friday. So
Trip.
yeah, I mean, knowing very little about Mater Day this year, I just know that that's you know it's just a long way to go.
One of
So
my most lopsided, maybe my most lopsided regular season defeat ever. And we played them as like a 7-point game at Christmas 2 weeks before. So I'll just leave it there.
you were pretty familiar with that Mater Day trip, though. You guys spent a lot of time down there when you were coaching.
And saw some teams now. I think
Well,
by 3 years in that Mater Day tournament, and there were 7 teams made it to the state tournament
yeah.
out of the 3 years we were there.
Well, and
That's
no,
not counting 3A Mascuda and Robbie Rudy, who was a stud.
well, and like again, I just looked up Mater Day right now, 9-6 on the season. But I will tell you this, just because I see this teams from this school enough to know that they're always just going to have athletes, right? Like they're always going to be difficult to deal with, and so you just know it's a tough trip. But
Place to play, Whitey. I'm just telling you.
but again, kind of shifting gears. Well, now I want to talk about a couple of the games that happened this week. Again, South Central, um, they beat Sisney on Friday night, beat them 53-51. They beat Carlisle Tuesday night by 5 points. South Central has won, I think, 10 games in a row. If you'll indulge me a second here. Yeah. One, two.
And I was being told how good Sisney was this year, and Everybody I hear playing them beats them.
but there's pretty good teams beating them. I
Oh,
mean,
I understand that, but I'm still saying at some
I didn't
point you got to win.
I didn't see Sisney this year. They come to the Neogas. They come to the Mary Sir tournament at the beginning of the year,
Hmm?
and last year I got a chance to see them. They played Neoga. I didn't get. I mean, yeah, they've lost 4 games this year. 2 of them to North Clay and 1 to South Central. So, I mean, those are quality losses for them. But South Central again, 10 wins in a row. They've got a couple of big games coming up this week. They go to Windsor Stew Straws on Tuesday, so that'll be and
That'll be a good one.
South Central's only played 1 game in the conference. I mentioned 1 loss teams in the conference. Well, South Central's only played the 1. They got beat by Altamont, and that's all they've done so far. They're 13-4 overall.
See,
So
that's a big game because it's about the NTC seeding weekend this Saturday, I think.
I would imagine that has to be coming up, right? Because the tournament's not next week, but the week after. So,
Yeah, I think it's 2 weeks out. You seed them, and yeah, that Saturday, they
well, and they've got
Todd Arnold used to have donuts for us, and you know,
and they got Diederik coming in on Friday also. So,
it's two
those
big
are
conference games.
yeah, those are really nice circle the calendar type of games for South Central, and I'm sure the Diederik game means a little something extra because they going back to Midland Trail days. They've
Oh
been
yeah,
there's been a good rivalry there, but again, North Clay going to Altamont, just circling back to that. That's an enormous game, and I I'm not going to sit here and try to handicap it, but I think it's going to be a fantastic basketball game. They're both very good and obviously
yeah.
very important uh, to the league standings. So have fun with that one. I think that should be great. Um, Anything else I need to touch on? It's a good win for St. Elmo Brownstown to beat Windsor Stew Straws though, because again, they're a good team. They're 13-4, and St. Elmo's 10-5. I mean,
Oh, I know.
there's they've lost a couple. St. Elmo's lost a couple of conference games, but that was a nice one for them. I'm looking at their schedule this week. They got Patoka. I don't know anything about Edinburgh, but that's the other.
Haven't they had a couple games though, and they just kind of got stuck pretty good?
Yeah, they have St. Anthony obviously got them by a pretty fair amount, and they lost to Neoga in conference play. They lost by 2 points there. That was one where St. Elmo apparently had a shot where they had a pretty good look to win it, and it just didn't go. But Mike Taylor, the Neoga athletic director, told me he was holding his breath. He's like, it looked good coming out of the hand. I was sure we would beat, but and North Clay only got them by 8, though. So they played well in that game. Now, granted, that was months ago at this point. That was more than a month ago. So,
Right.
but yeah, conference picture is going to get a lot clearer after this week, just because you have some of those teams playing against each other and getting some league games in. So that leads us to NTC girls. Save this one for last. Neoga or National Trail Conference has Neoga at the top at 5-0. St. Anthony's 4-0. Now they're playing each other this week, so it's a big week for the NTC. But I wanted to point out before we went into anything, the NTC girls 83-39 in non-conference play this year, and if you take out 6 games they played against each other in various tournaments, it's 77-33. So the percentage gets even a little bit better. So they've been really good, and it would be even better if Altamont hadn't lost their best player. There's a couple of games in there that the Altamont girls win if they have everybody available.
Right. If they have Grace playing.
Sure. I mean, I don't want anyone else on the team to take that as a slight, but you lose the kid who scores that many points for you, and if nothing else, it's an adjustment period, right, to figure things out. And so they've lost a few games as of late, but the NTC girls, very, very, very good. St. Anthony girls played twice this week. They beat Shelbyville by 40 points on Thursday, and then had Flora come in, and we already touched on this, but Flora played them to a 5-point game, 61-56. So St. Anthony's girls are 16-4 overall, and 4 losses. They lost to T-Town, they lost to Galesburg, they lost to Champaign Central. Those are all uh, you know bigger schools. T-Town, obviously good competition there. Trying to think of who St. Anthony's other losses to, and I'm drawing a blank now. But
Effingham beat them.
that's right, that's right. It was Effingham. So you know, they haven't
Yeah.
been beaten by a team that they're like, we shouldn't have lost that game. They
Yeah,
might.
that game Thursday should be really good. It'll be interesting because sometimes really good boy matchups, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because I've seen more boys games are supposed to be really good matchups, and then the teams just kind of they don't play well.
Yeah,
Well, just like when I was at the game with you when T Town and St. Anthony girls played, neither team played well. They both struggled, and you hope that's. I want to come out and see one of these games one time when both teams play well. T Town St. Anthony boys in the Christmas tournament. Neither team played that well. And it was because of the other. They were so, getting after each other that there wasn't flow in the game.
yeah.
So, I hope the 2 games or whichever games I get to see this week. I mean, that's the case. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's a big week for Neoga. So they played twice this week. Now they played Casey yesterday. Casey's down, so that was a running clock game. They had Fairfield come in on Thursday. This was interesting because they were supposed to play Sullivan Thursday night, and Sullivan apparently accidentally double booked that night. And so Neoga was the odd man out. So they got Fairfield to come in. And I went to that game. They only won by 4 points. Fairfield was solid, but it's probably a little bit tougher matchup than they would have gotten from Sullivan. But Neoga's 19-1. The thing for them is that I just went over St. Anthony's, quality losses. I think the best team that Neoga has played this year was Tuscola, and they got beat in that game. So they're going to get their stoutest challenges of the season this week.
Right.
They've got Pena. They go to Pena on Monday, and Pena's always good. And then they've got St. Anthony. They go to St. Anthony Thursday, and then they're playing in the shootout on Saturday, and they got Vandalia, which that Vandalia team beat Cowden. So they've obviously got some pretty good wins in them. So that's a really, this will be a week where I think we learn a little bit more about Neoga. Now I don't want to run them down because they're 19-1, but again, this is as challenging a week as they've had from a competition perspective. So I think we'll just know a lot more about this installment of Neoga by the time it's all said and done. And obviously the Neoga St. Anthony game has huge conference implications because those are your 2 teams that have not lost a conference game yet going up against each other. So can we mathematically say it will decide the conference? No, not yet, but it pretty much will. Neoga's 5-0. St. Anthony's 4-0, but they've already beaten Cowden, one of your 1-loss teams. And Brownstown's your other one that's only lost 1 game in the conference, and that was to Neoga. So, this one's huge. Should be a lot of fun. And I don't really, people have been asking me how I think they match up with each other, and I'm not sure. I'm really not. St. Anthony has got a lot of kids who could put up some points on any given night.
They attack the basket. They really do. I think St. Anthony, that night they played T-Town, the Brew Hall girl, Wonderheim girl, they go to the hole. And then Lucy Faraday does Lucy Faraday things.
Yeah. And then, right now, St. Anthony almost has 4 kids averaging double figures. Anna Faber's not.
Oh yeah, Anna Faber.
She's not quite there, but she's got she's got 20 plus point games this season.
Right.
She scored 17 and 13 in their last two games. I don't know what she did against Flora. I haven't seen a box score there yet, but
Well, and the Nuxall girl's not afraid to shoot it. So
Nuxall, yeah, she didn't play in their she didn't appear to play in the Christmas tournament, but has been back in action. She did play in the last game of the Christmas tournament. She played against Olney, and then she played against Shelbyville. It seems like maybe she must have been dealing with something. But yeah, they've got some depth there. They've got Ruhal in that T-Town game. T-Town took her out of it for a while. She looked kind of lost in the first quarter, and then
yeah, and then after that she got into it. Yeah.
figured it out. So yeah, but Neoga can, I Neoga can defend, like I in that matchup, I don't know if defending St. Anthony is the thing I worry about for Neoga. I think it's more, you know, finding that third option. Sydney Richards and Haley Campbell are going to get their points. Bryn Richards, I really just want to see her continue to be aggressive. I watched the Tuscola game. She was their leading scorer in that game. Sometimes she gets a little passive offensively, and I hope she just understands that she can be a scorer and embraces that role. And again, that's the problem is, and I've had this conversation with so many coaches, is that being a scorer is not just about your physical capabilities and your skills. It's right there.
Yep.
You gotta want to do it. And some kids just aren't built that way. They just don't see themselves that way. And you can't.
Well, and the other thing is some kids are scorers their junior year and not their senior year.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I've noticed with Sydney Richards even is that like she gets keyed on, I mean, obviously everybody knows the story with her at this point, right? Like
Sure.
and she handles it, she deals with it, but by the end of the game, you can tell that she's, at least to me, you can tell that she's been had people riding on her for, for 32 minutes. So,
well, a lot of it comes up when you're not option one, people sometimes find it easier to score. Suddenly, when you're option one and you're the focus of the defense, you don't get as many easy buckets as you do when you're option two.
and I think she was option one for Neoga last year, but I think they had a couple of other kids that were more willing to put the ball in the air. Their senior guards as they graduated were, uh, they would take a shot. They didn't shy away from it. You have a little bit harder time sometimes finding people, looking for their shot in this year's installment. But again, I don't want to harp too much because they're 19-1. I mean,
Right. No, I understand.
I
And like I said, they're going to find out which end of the pool. Are they in the deep end or are they kind of that 5 foot, hanging around the rope? They're
yep,
going to find out.
they will. This is a big week for them, so we'll see. Other NTC stuff to keep an eye on. One thing I thought was interesting was Cowden beat Diederich 54-29 this week, and that's interesting just because Diederich beat them in the championship game of their Thanksgiving tournament a few weeks ago. So quite a reversal there. And the Altamont girls they got a win Thursday night. They went to South Central and beat them by 18, which I thought that was going to be a bit closer game, just because South Central, they're not having to figure out how to replace their all-time
Right.
leading scorer. But Altamont played well and apparently shot very well in that game, and so it was nice for them
For them.
to get back in the win column. It's not a situation that anybody wants to be in as a coach or player to try and figure out how to deal with life without the focal point of your offense. But they got that win, so I'm happy for them there. I'm looking what else they've got. Brownstown goes to Altamont Thursday night. Diederich and Brownstown play on Wednesday. That's a makeup game that got pushed back from a couple weeks ago. Those would be interesting matchups. And then there's this most of the conference teams go to Warrensburg Latham on Saturday. There's a big shootout. between NTC teams and CIC teams. So Dieter will play Shelbyville, North Clay will play Macon Meridian, Windsor Stew plays Sullivan, Brownstown plays Central A&M. That could be a pretty good game. I've seen Central A&M and Brownstown. Neoga plays Vandalia, which Vandalia is not in the CIC, but I think they just had to find somebody to come in and
Right.
play. Altamont plays Warrensburg Latham, and then the marquee matchup of that, Cowden plays Tuscola to close it all
Big
out.
ball game.
Yeah, Tuscola's good. I mean, I saw them play against Neoga, and they're very very good. So that could be an interesting matchup. Should be a good ball game. But there you go. That's the week that was in basketball around the area, and I think we've touched on everything that's coming up. I don't know do we miss anything that
No, not high school. Why do you Indiana Hoosiers are in trouble?
why do you say that?
Well, they're now down a second starter. They've been beat by Iowa and Northwestern this week. Now Northwestern
I think
is
Northwestern
3-1 in the conference. They've beat Michigan State at Michigan State, Illinois at Northwestern, and then Indiana at Indiana. First time I heard today, Bardo said the first time since 1967 Northwestern has beaten Michigan State, Illinois, and Indiana in the same season.
Yeah, I think and maybe maybe it's a coping mechanism, but maybe we just have to come to grips with the idea that Northwestern is decent this year. I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around, but yeah, I don't know. Illinois beat Wisconsin without their leading scorer yesterday. I mean, granted,
Yeah.
but at least it was a win.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Win,
And the Indiana Iowa game, I was playing cards, so I was kind of watching it on my phone while I was playing cards. I wasn't paying attention. I don't know what happened at the Fran McCafferty blow up, but he had one tee, and supposedly an official whistled in a second tee, and then they did.
If you go watch, he made the motion, but then they didn't call it. He was,
yeah,
and I can't figure out what he was mad. He was mad because an assistant coach for Indiana was talking to the officials. Is that what the problem was?
I don't know what it was. There was I saw there was a dead ball, and now when kids were leaving the floor, I don't know if a kid from Iowa said something to the Indiana bench. I'm not saying he did. I have no idea. But yeah, next thing I know, I see McCafferty going batshit crazy, and I don't have the volume up. I'm just watching it, and I need to find someone who works well on computers who can tell me if Indiana in the last 2 years has blown more double-digit leads to lose a game than anybody in the country, because they did it a lot last year. So if you know anyone who's tech savvy, Whitey, who can get into any of these statistical websites,
well,
I'm curious. The top 10 teams in the country the last 2 years who have blown double-digit leads and lost. I'd be interested to see where Indiana ranks.
I'll tell you this much without making you any promises. That'd be a fun one to research.
There you go. I knew I could get you excited about it.
I watched the end of that Indiana Iowa game just because, like, to me, no matter which team lost, I was going to be happy.
You were going to be happy. I understand.
Yeah. So those are the fun ones.
I had to move my daughter. I had to take some mattress and some things over Saturday to Bloomington, Indiana, and I drove. I drove by the arena a couple times, and I didn't go genuflect or anything in front of the arena, but I mean, such high hopes this year. Now, on that freshman guard, Shafino had 33 today, I think. Trace Jackson Davis almost had the second triple-double of the year, which would be the only player in college basketball to do that this year. He was 2 assists shy. He had 20 rebounds today, Whitey. It's amazing when, he didn't have Race Thompson. He may be done for the year. Johnson, they don't know if they're going to get him back. So there's 2 starters that are probably gone for the year, or most of it.
Well,
I know that upsets you.
Here's the thing that we can both fall back on. And that's that as long as Minnesota's around, neither one of our teams is going to finish in the basement.
No, they'll keep us out. They're not very good. But that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah.
Now, does Illinois go to Rutgers, or do they? Because they somehow get out of these games. Oh, we play Rutgers once at home. Oh, go to Rutgers. That's the fun place.
Yeah, they do
The
not.
gym holds about 800 people, and they're all crazy New Jerseyans.
They don't go to Rutgers this year.
See, how's that work?
You'll have to talk to. Is it Jim Delaney? Is Jim Delaney still the?
No, Warren. He's in charge. He's getting ready to. Supposedly, he's interviewing for something.
With the Bears, right? Isn't that right?
Is that what he's interviewing for?
I think so.
Hey, I did see on the Twitter verse just about an hour ago, the Bears have locked up the first round draft pick next year, Whitey.
You want to know something, Mike?
They're going to trade it. They're going to trade it.
Well, they should, although all the meathead sports columnists are saying, well, we're not sure that they have their quarterback. They could draft a quarterback number one.
Let's get another one.
At a certain point, you just got to go with what you got, because you got a lot more holes to fill than just maybe not liking the fact that he's a running quarterback. Like,
you know what? You better trade and get about as many good offensive linemen as you can.
Fix the rest. Fix the rest of your team, and then go get some Andy Dalton type to be the backup quarterback. If you're that worried about Fields getting hurt,
wait, wasn't Andy Dalton already a backup quarterback with the Bears?
Yes, he was, but Andy Dalton type. All I'm saying is somebody serviceable, somebody who's not going to embarrass.
Hey, you could be in the Rams boat, and Matthew Stafford's career may be over, and they've sold the farm. They've sold their soul the last couple of years. They have like 6 draft picks in the next 10 years.
That's the thing. Nothing. The Bears have a buttload of cap space too, so they've got a real chance to improve the team. I don't know why you would spend if you could trade that number one. I mean, you're gonna think what you get for the number one overall.
It depends on how desperate somebody is for what's the kid's first name? Alabama, the quarterback. He's kind of the consensus first round pick.
I don't. You're Bryce Young. Yeah,
Bryce Young.
I don't know. Like you have a quarterback that you've seen performing at the NFL level. Like you never know what you're going to get. How many can't miss guys have just turned out to suck out?
You got so many teams. Quarterbacks got hurt this year. I mean, I've got to think that that's a valuable commodity they can sell.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they should.
Yeah.
Or they'll keep him and draft a center.
What's that?
They'll keep him and draft a center.
I had a chance to go to the game today, by the way. My boss, she married a guy who his family's had season tickets forever, and they actually took me to my first Bears game at Soldier Field a few years ago. They beat the Saints. It was a great game, fun game, and it was warm. She came into my office Friday and said, hey, you wouldn't, I probably know the answer to this already, but you wouldn't be interested in going with us up to Chicago Sunday. And I was like, oh, my daughter's got a basketball game. She's playing basketball in Arcola.
And more importantly, I have a podcast.
Yeah. And quite honestly, don't take it personally. I didn't mention the podcast because I already had that.
Why?
But also I was like, and really, nothing against the company of you and your husband, but I don't know if I'd want to go up to watch the Bears in the cold anyway this year. Like this is,
we're going to Nashville next weekend, and I'll hustle back. I'll probably set land speed records and get back in time so I can do the podcast.
Don't hustle too much because my daughter's pitching lessons the next not next Sunday. It's the 2 Sundays after that. They're a little bit on the late side. So, nobody cares about this stuff. We're talking about stuff people care about even less than what we normally talk about. So we can drop that. Yeah, maybe the Bears will do enough to get me a little more interested. I've been checked out for quite a while this year.
Hey, are the Braves in on Carlos Correa? Did they get back in?
Not that I've seen. I think it's entertaining just because it's the Mets, Yeah. I hope he goes somewhere else just because the Mets.
He may end up back at the Twins, but I think John Heyman tweeted that they're There
Yes,
are other teams
other
in, but he
teams.
still thinks the Mets are the favorite.
Well, but that's kind of a game that Scott Boras likes to play anyway.
Yeah, him and Heyman. Isn't Heyman like Boris's puppet?
Well, Heyman, I don't get to see John Heyman's tweets anymore. So um
Why not?
but
How
yeah,
does that happen? I've never
probably for pointing out things like what you just said. Some people don't like constructive criticism. What can I
I
say?
understand. I understand.
Um,
So John Heyman and Dan Dockett, you're not allowed on their Twitter page.
well, among others. We don't need to get into that list.
That could be a show. We could do a whole show.
Just a whole show of people who block me. Okay.
Who blocked this one? Because I'm interested to see Dockett's tweets tomorrow because he'll go off on Indiana. I mean, he always does. He will go off on them. He got into it one night with the
Woodson's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. She took him to task. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about Correa. He's been playing with it for a long time. Like he clearly knows how to manage it and still produce. As long as.
Yeah, but I don't want to sign him for 11 years.
Yeah, that's a little tricky. But the Mets, to me, the Mets shouldn't be worried about it. They've already spent ridiculous money, so just spend a little more. You've got it. Who cares? Like, put the team together. Put the super.
Surely they still got some of that Bernie Madoff money coming back, don't they? Didn't their previous owners lose a lot of money in that Ponzi scheme?
Yeah, but I mean, listen.
That was the Wilpons.
That was the Wilpons. Yeah, Steve
not to be confused.
now.
Not to be confused with Mike Wilbon.
No, please don't confuse them. But Steve Cohen's got more money than God too. So why not? And he seems to be that guy who just like he looks at the success of the team as some reflection on him. Like kind of a Mark Cuban type, which I've always said. I'd take the Mark Cuban owner who has kind of a big mouth and probably, every once in a while sticks his foot in it over the person who's just cashing the
over Stan Kroenke, who's just worried about cashing checks.
Yeah, like give
show me a passion. I like passionate owners.
Yeah, like give me the ego, right? Like I probably don't like any of these people as people, but at least give me the one who wants the team to win instead of just looking at it as an investment. Unfortunately, not very many of those out there anymore. So you take what you can get. All right. Good games this week. Be listening to the radio. 97.9 and 102.3 going to have a ton of basketball on this week.
Get to hear you and I Thursday and Friday somewhere.
Yeah. Listen,
we don't know where we're at Thursday, but we know where we're at Friday.
And I got Tuesday too. So I got that Neoga St. Anthony game on Tuesday also.
There you go.
So, even if I don't know how the game will turn out, but I
may have to turn the volume down on Oak Island and listen to you.
Even if St. Anthony wins that one Tuesday night, you should still keep listening because by God, you'll get to hear the dulcet tones.
Will you give me a shout out if I listen Tuesday?
Sure. Does it have to be complimentary? I've occasionally
thrown
us on the
air. And I said nice things usually about you on radio.
Well, that's your mistake. You can stop anytime. I don't even like people saying nice things about me. So
all right.
So just go for it. Just to tear me a new one. All right. Let's call it a week. And
sounds good.
We'll have lots of good games to talk about next week. Hopefully somebody to talk to, but if nothing else, we'll have.
Yeah, I've got 2 guests. I just got to figure out how we're going to get. I'd like to get Aaron on. I'd like to get him on fairly soon because what he does is amazing.
Yeah. It's hard work keeping up with all that stuff. I've just been trying to keep up with.
He texted me wanting the T-Town Warrensburg score where he couldn't find it anywhere. So I was able to help him in what's small. Anytime there's a score down here he needs, sometimes I'll get a text. Hey, who won the Ramsey Buford Weber game? I didn't even know they played. So.
Well, I'll tell you, you check out Vandalia, WKRV, i70sports.com. They
do have a lot of scores.
That's where you go to get the Ramsey stuff and the more importantly for us, the Cowden and the Vandalia or the Altamont and Brownstown, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. You just gotta.
Is that Todd Stapleton doing it?
I think so. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Well, Mike, have a good week. We will. I'll see you. Want to see you.
See you, buddy.
Later.